I'm joined by Hall of Famer John Smoltz. Smoltzy, tell me this. What's harder, winning a Cy Young or an Emmy Award?
Oh, man. Winning a Cy Young. It takes a lot longer to happen. You know, it's funny when you mention something like that. I just go back to all those years of being predicted to win and just feeling like a failure. But in 96, fortunately, I was able to at least get that off my back because that was starting to bother me.
Download the Brett Boone Podcast, available on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast.
Want to feel better, get more exercise, or quit tobacco? Prescription for Wellness can improve your health with personalized sessions based on your schedule. Our expert health coaches and care managers use proven techniques. It's free for UPMC Health Plan members and could lead to the results you want. For more information, visit upmchp.us/pfwellness. That's upmchp.us/pfwellness.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily, Albrocht and Caster. Glad to be here with you on all 19 social media platforms that are available to us, maybe soon to be 20.
By the way, for anybody listening, I am on Threads if you'd like to follow me. At Tommy Caster. It's just very simple, first name, last name. I have no idea how to use it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm there. And, I mean, we'll figure it out together, I suppose.
Boy, I'll bet you'll have it figured out in about 3 seconds because it can't be that hard. It looks like a total Twitter ripoff. Like, it looks the exact same. I can't imagine this doesn't get, like, tied up in lawsuits. And it's a crazy world out there. And they're going to invent AI, and we know what's going to happen. We've all seen The Matrix. We've seen iRobot. We know how this is going to go. So... You know, we're all, count down the days here before the robots take over.
Right. We're inching closer and closer to that post-apocalyptic I Am Legend, sort of world that we're going to be in pretty soon.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like, do aliens have some sort of, like, time travel devices and they've, like, invaded Hollywood? Because all these outrageous sci-fi movies continue to, like, now that we're getting to those technologies, like, oh, that's totally going to happen. Like, that's where we're headed. Like,
yeah, but have you seen, and I know I'm not the most attractive man on the planet, but you look at Mark Zuckerberg, you look at Elon Musk, like they're clearly aliens, both of them. Have you ever looked at the way? I mean, they look like aliens.
Like
so,
Men in Black, again, another
here.
very predictive, another very predictive movie, Men in Black. I mean, yeah. There you go, 2 prime candidates. Whatever. We'll pass the time for you again until the robots that become smarter than us take over and don't have any use for
what
us.
We'll do. We serve a very important role to talk about things like Victor Wembanyama and Britney Spears while the robots are taking over. So nothing to see over here. We'll just tell you all about
Maybe we're the
and
aliens.
Britney Spears.
Maybe we're the aliens and we don't
be.
even know it.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of aliens, like I'm totally convinced they're down there at the bottom of the ocean. Like, can we stop? Can we just leave that alone? Like, have we learned our lesson yet? Like, we can get to the moon, but we can't get to the bottom of the ocean. Let that sink in for you. I'm pretty sure that's where they're hiding down there.
And by the way, in the least surprising news ever category, I don't know if you heard about this, but the Titan company, the one that had the submarine and all that, they're done. They're out. Yeah. So I don't think anybody's surprised by that, but makes sense.
All right, let's talk K-State football. So we bring out the poll, and it starts with KU because of the story. There's something else historic about this poll too, and it has to do with the top, and it's not for Kansas State, but for Texas. Tommy, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. It's like the first time in 14 years that Texas in the media poll has been picked to win the Big 12 in the preseason media poll. That stunned me. I could not believe that. As much hype as there seems to be around Texas every year, that they'd never been, and I think probably that has as much to do with Oklahoma as anything else. But, man, that was crazy when I saw that little nugget.
There's always a ton of hype and expectations around the Longhorns, regardless if they're picked first or not in a preseason poll. There is always massively high expectations for Texas. And so as soon as I saw that poll came out, I thought, man, Texas has a lot to live up to. They always do. But especially considering that the media thinks they're going to finish first, If they don't come close to that, it's going to be a bad deal. And you know what? Credit goes to Steve Sarkisian because he has improved that program, for sure. I don't know if they are worthy of the number one preseason poll by the media, that ranking. I don't know that right now, but I understand why that thought process is there.
I think that they probably are. I think it's 1 and 1A, and I think that clearly, played itself out. Now, they had a large majority. This is what's interesting to me. So they have a large majority of the first place votes, 41-14, right? But that point system you talk about, which has to do with where you're placed in the poll and everybody's poll, it's a lot closer than that, which tells me there's pretty mixed reviews on Texas, or this is a media poll, Tommy. And sometimes, especially when you get into like beat writing and all that stuff, people can get a little jaded. And this is probably why Texas has never been picked at the top, is because some people just hate them so much and what they've done to the league and all of these things. And so, like, when you look at total points, there seems to be far more consensus that Kansas State will be at or near the top than there is with Texas. But everybody I've seen that put their poll out publicly or talked to about their poll had it as some combination of Kansas State and Texas at 1 and 2. So, and I agree with that, by the way. I think that that's totally fine, totally healthy. I have no issue whatsoever with picking Texas at the top. They have an insane talent pool there. And there were times last year where they looked like they were the best team in the league, and there were times where they looked like they weren't, and that's been Texas's problem. So, again, Steve Sarkisian has to make it over that hump that all the Texas coaches since Mac Brown have, had to make it over, and that's, you've got all this talent. Now, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, and look, the talent pool, to your point, has always been there, and it's there in full strength coming into this season. But hasn't that always been the big knock on Texas, that they rarely, if ever, live up to that? They rarely, if ever, convert that talent into prime success, right?
Mac Brown won 10 games every year, and that wasn't enough, apparently.
So they've tried it with, who all has been there? Charlie Strong, they tried it with him. They tried it with Tom Herman. Didn't work with him either. They've got Steve Sarkisian in place now, and the talent pool, yes, is there for sure for Texas. And a lot of times I think that the Longhorns in that program, they're a victim of their fan base's expectations, right? Like, everybody expects Texas to be these world beaters all the time. And anytime they do anything that is less than perfect, it's like the pitchforks come out. And so there's always a lot of pressure on that program. I think my big concern with them going into this season is that, they're picked first in the Big 12, and that means those expectations are then sky high. Anything less than winning the Big 12 is going to be a massive disappointment and a letdown.
Isn't it crazy? Like, I think back to them, and we didn't intend to spend this much time with Texas, but when we talk about 14 years and being picked to win it, like, there was a stretch where Mac Brown never won fewer than 10 games for more than a decade, I think. And then they ran him out of town after he won 8, 9, and 8 games. Right? It was just like, what on earth?
Well, it's another example of the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Yeah,
I mean,
it almost never
they're still digging out.
Greener.
They're still digging out from that decision to move on from Mac Brown. And meanwhile, Brown has had pretty solid success at North Carolina, a program that, historically isn't a powerhouse, and he's still coaching. I think a lot of people at the time when they let Mac Brown go thought that he was ancient and, past his prime and all of that. The dude's still coaching and having success.
If you could draw a perfect coach for a program, like Bill Snyder, right, for Kansas State, like guys that just fit, Nick Saban, Alabama, who just feel like that program, right? Mac Brown at Texas is right up there with anybody. Like, as far as looking, feeling, sounding, everything like the program. It's crazy. All right, so Kansas State. Let's spend some time with the Wildcats here. Picked second, no problem there. In the regular season, that's where they finished last year. I think that's very okay for Kansas State because, ultimately you got to finish in the top 2 now. So it really doesn't matter. I think I'm trying to think of the floor for them. Like, what's a reasonable floor? And I think, with everything last year being so great and with everything coming back being so good, I still think, top 4 constitutes a good season for the Cats. I don't think they have to win the Big 12 this year, anything crazy like that, or it's a disappointment. I think it's about top 4. Oklahoma, shockingly a little bit, picked all the way up at 3rd despite their struggles last year. And then Texas Tech, who I thought was going to come as this dark horse, like discounted betting team this year. Everybody's paying attention because everybody likes Tech, and I do too. I thought that they were going to be one where you could make like this bold statement like Texas Tech's going to finish in the top 3 of the Big 12. No, there's a lot of people that think that. So I think 4 is healthy. I think, you look at that mix. I think TCU probably deserves to be there, whether they're voted there or not, just based on what they did last year. But it looks like that's the group. Kansas State squarely in there. I will certainly be looking at some odds on Kansas State to win the Big 12 because that ultimately comes down to that championship game now. Anybody else outside of that top 5, you think, Tommy, that has a chance to win it? Like the ultimate dark horse that comes in and surprises us? I would always say that's Oklahoma State, but, man, I know people are down on them. I think you're looking at that group as the reasonable group. The one school I wonder about, and again, I don't know anything about them, UCF, if they're picked high enough to be there at wherever they were picked, 8? Like, I wonder if they're good enough, and again, I have no idea about their roster. None. Like, I'll learn about them as they play this year. But I wonder if any of those teams have an outside puncher's chance. I don't think so, but maybe.
I wouldn't necessarily count out Baylor. I don't think Baylor will win the Big 12.
Yeah,
but Dave Aranda is a really Dave Aranda. I know,
and I wouldn't count him out either. But I just said if there was a team I'd put Kansas ahead of, it'd probably be Baylor.
Yeah, I've always liked Dave Aranda and
too.
how quickly he turned that program around after Art Briles left. So that might be. I know that's they're at 6, so that's not a really super bold statement. I'm not going way far down in the rankings.
No, I think it's bold.
But I would say that a team on the complete opposite end that, we talked about Oklahoma State trending down, Iowa State also. I mean, remember when Matt Campbell was the darling of college football and didn't leave the Cyclones and had opportunities to do so? The program over the last couple of years has been down compared to where it was. When was that? 2019, 2020, when they were basically competing for a Big 12 championship. And now they're all the way, picked at 10th in the preseason poll. So that's a team that I would stay away from for sure, just because, they are trending downwards also. But going back to Kansas State, I get it. I'm okay with 2nd. That being said, though.
Where would you have put them?
I think 2nd I think that's fine. I'm okay with that. I don't have an issue with 2nd. I could see an argument where, maybe you put Texas Tech at number 2 and Kansas State at 3, Oklahoma at 4. I could have seen that also. The thing is with the Wildcats coming into this year, we talked about Texas and their lofty expectations. I don't think the expectations from the fan base at Kansas State are quite as ridiculous as the ones at Texas are year in and year out. But there's an expectation now for Kansas State to be competing for Big 12 championships and to be in the Big 12 title game. And so you say top 4 is acceptable. I don't really know if it is. I think that Kansas State now, because they won the Big 12 last year, they're going to be expected, especially with a veteran quarterback like Will Howard, and you've got a preseason newcomer of the year in Tershawn Ward, to be competing for a Big 12 championship. I think they need to be in the top 2. If they're going to be picked 2nd in the preseason poll, I think they got to be. I think they got to finish in that same arena, somewhere in the top 2.
I would have picked them, Tommy, 1, if I had a poll, because you return that kind of quarterback, your entire offensive line, an all-conference defensive player, and maybe this guy. But the reality is, Tommy, they had 4 guys drafted, right, out of the Big 12. Not a lot of teams, so they lost a lot too. And I think that's important, right? Especially when you're talking about Felix Anudike-Uzomah and Deuce Vaughn, who were 2 of the best players at their positions in the country, and then 2, longtime good players in Brinson Hayes. They lost a lot. There's a lot of questions on that defense. The offense feels okay, but, man, that defense has a ton of questions. And I don't think, based on what we've seen, well, you know what? Let's take a break, and we'll come back to that thought. on just everything in totality with that program, where a finish might have fans feeling. We'll do that when we return on Sports Daily, talking about that poll. On our way out, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 coming to Boulevard Theaters in Wichita. You can check it out a day early. Pair of tickets for a special screening on Thursday, July 13th at 7 o'clock. Boulevard Theaters at Town West. That's a week from yesterday, so 6 days away, July 13th. Mission Impossible. Get a pair of tickets. Sneak peek on us. First caller on our way out here, 869-1240 to the IHOP hotline. Tom and I will be back. Wrap up hour number 1.